Are you weary of the constant chatter of worry that hijacks your peace? Do you find yourself trapped in endless cycles of what-if scenarios, catastrophic thinking, and paralyzing fear that robs you of presence and joy? Does it feel like your mind has become a factory of anxiety, manufacturing worst-case scenarios and filling your days with dread about futures that may never come to pass? Then this life-changing guide is for you, courageous soul seeking freedom from the chains of worry and fear. Today we'll explore transformative ancient wisdom, timeless teachings that have brought peace to anxious minds for millennia, that can help you escape the prison of chronic worry and rediscover the natural calm that is your birthright. These aren't superficial relaxation techniques or temporary coping strategies, but profound practices that can fundamentally rewire how your nervous system responds to uncertainty and restore your innate capacity for presence, trust, and serenity. Prepare to uncover sacred methods that not only quiet the anxious mind, but also awaken the fearless, grounded awareness that lies beneath every worry. True mental peace, the kind that remains steady, even when life is unpredictable, is not only achievable but inevitable when you apply these time-honored principles with commitment and self-compassion. These teachings have liberated countless beings from the tyranny of anxiety throughout history, and today they can free you too from the mental patterns that have stolen your peace for far too long. Understanding the nature of anxiety. Recognizing the mind's fear factory. Imagine your mind as a garden that has become overrun with weeds of worry, anxious thoughts, fearful projections, and mental habits that choke out the natural flowers of peace and contentment. These destructive patterns arise like relentless storms, fed by uncertainty, past conditioning, and the mind's primitive tendency to scan for danger even when none exists, creating an exhausting cycle of mental vigilance that leaves you depleted and disconnected from life's simple pleasures. Each anxious thought that captures your attention is actually a learned response, a mental pathway strengthened by repetition, traumatic experiences, and unconscious beliefs about safety and control. Ancient wisdom teaches us that recognizing the conditioned, impermanent nature of these worry patterns is the first essential step toward reclaiming your natural state of calm and discovering the unshakable peace that exists beneath the mental noise. Understanding that anxious thoughts are not accurate predictions or fundamental truths is crucial for breaking free from their hypnotic control. These mental patterns are like clouds passing through the infinite sky of consciousness. They appear, create temporary disturbance, and inevitably dissolve when met with the right understanding and skillful response. You are not your anxious thoughts. You are the vast, peaceful awareness in which they arise and fade away. When we become completely identified with anxiety, it's as if we're living in a mental torture chamber where every thought broadcasts messages of danger, inadequacy, and impending doom. We rehearse the same fearful scenarios repeatedly, visions of failure, catastrophic health outcomes, relationship disasters, or professional humiliation. But unlike being trapped in an actual dangerous situation, we possess the keys to our mental freedom and can learn to unlock these chains of unnecessary suffering. Buddha taught that we can train our minds to recognize and transform these automatic fear patterns through what he called right mindfulness and wise discernment. This involves developing the ability to observe our thoughts with compassionate detachment rather than being completely swept away by their emotional intensity and false urgency. A powerful example of this process is the technique of anxiety noting, a method used in both traditional meditation and modern anxiety therapy. Every time you notice yourself spiraling into worry, whether it's health fears, social anxiety, or catastrophic thinking about the future, gently acknowledge, this is anxiety arising. This is the conditioned mind creating fearful stories. This simple practice helps you create healing distance from anxious thoughts, observing them without being consumed by their frightening content. In this liberation process, it's absolutely vital to cultivate infinite patience and gentleness toward your anxious mind. We often criticize ourselves harshly for feeling worried or afraid, creating a secondary layer of suffering on top of the original anxiety. This self-judgment only intensifies the cycle, creating a spiral of fear about fear. By applying principles of loving kindness to our own mental processes, we can begin to treat our worried mind with the same tenderness we would offer a frightened child. To transform these habitual patterns of anxiety, it's important to identify your unique worry triggers, specific situations, thoughts, people, or even physical sensations that tend to activate anxious thinking cycles. Maybe it's checking the news, thinking about money, facing social situations, or experiencing physical discomfort. By recognizing these triggers, you can prepare your mind to meet them with new tools, such as grounding exercises, calming mantras, or breathing techniques. Integrating practices like loving-kindness meditation, specifically directed toward your anxious parts, can be tremendously healing for rewiring fear patterns. Each day, by sending genuine wishes of safety and peace to your worried mind, starting with, "May I feel safe, may I trust life's process, may I be free from unnecessary fear," you train your nervous system to default to calm rather than alarm, gradually dissolving anxiety's grip on your consciousness. Additionally, engaging in activities that naturally generate feelings of safety and connection can be an excellent way to interrupt anxious thought spirals. Whether it's spending time with trusted friends, creating comforting rituals, practicing gentle movement, connecting with nature, or engaging in soothing creative activities, these practices flood your system with calming energy and remind your nervous system of its natural capacity for peace and trust. Remember that healing anxiety is a gradual process, like training a frightened animal to trust again. Just as we would patiently and consistently show kindness to a scared creature, the practice of calming your anxious mind requires daily care and gentle persistence. Don't become discouraged by setbacks or days when worry feels particularly intense. Each moment of awareness and each conscious choice to meet fear with compassion is a victory on the path toward lasting mental peace. The theater of anxious stories, seeing through fear-based narratives. Understanding the fundamental nature and deepest sources of anxious thinking is absolutely essential for transforming your relationship with worry and achieving lasting freedom from psychological fear. In ancient wisdom traditions, much of our anxiety stems from what might be called the three illusions. The illusion of control, believing we can and must manage all outcomes. The illusion of certainty, thinking we need to know what will happen to feel safe. And the illusion of separation, feeling isolated and unsupported in facing life's challenges. These mental illusions manifest as obsessive planning, resistance to uncertainty, and a sense of having to face everything alone. Understanding these deep roots helps us systematically unravel the complex web that keeps our minds trapped in patterns of chronic worry and mental exhaustion. The human brain has an evolutionary tendency toward what researchers call threat detection bias, an ancient survival mechanism that helped our ancestors survive by constantly scanning for and preparing for potential dangers. In our modern world, this primitive alarm system often works against our psychological well-being, causing us to magnify unlikely threats while ignoring present safety, creating a distorted internal narrative that emphasizes everything that could go wrong while overlooking what's actually going right. Today, this tendency can be consciously transformed by bringing mindful awareness to these automatic patterns and recognizing that they don't need to dictate our experience or life choices. We have the remarkable capacity to retrain our nervous systems and develop what neuroscientists call neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to form new, calmer neural pathways throughout our lives. To effectively transform your relationship with anxious thinking, it can be profoundly helpful to keep an anxiety awareness journal. In this sacred space, record worry thoughts as they arise, noting the time, circumstances, physical sensations, and emotional triggers. Then reflect deeply on their patterns, their accuracy, how often do these feared outcomes actually occur, and potential reframes. This practice helps you see anxious thinking from an external, more objective perspective, reducing its emotional charge and power over your daily peace. As absolutely essential to accept that occasional anxiety is a natural part of the human experience, what ancient teachers acknowledged in their understanding of life's inherent uncertainty. Anxiety isn't something we should suppress, deny, or feel ashamed of. This radical acceptance brings tremendous relief and opens space for healthier, more skillful ways of relating to our inner fear responses. Ancient wisdom teaches that much. Our suffering comes from our resistance to uncertainty and our demand for guarantees that life cannot provide. When we fight against the natural unpredictability of existence or demand security that no human can achieve, we create additional suffering on top of our original anxiety. Instead, we can learn to dance with uncertainty, finding stability not in controlling outcomes, but in our own presence and adaptability. Mindfulness practices, rooted in thousands of years of wisdom, are extraordinarily effective for developing an entirely new relationship with anxious thoughts. By observing them without immediately believing or fighting them, we begin to understand our worry patterns more clearly and significantly reduce anxiety's control over our peace of mind and life decisions. The ancient understanding of impermanence is particularly liberating when applied to anxious thoughts. Everything in existence is constantly changing, including our mental states, circumstances, and the situations we fear. When we truly grasp this at an experiential level, we can relate to anxiety with less resistance and attachment, knowing deeply that this worry too shall pass. If this message resonates with you, and you're seeking more moments of peace and insight, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for daily reflections rooted in ancient wisdom and modern clarity. The Way of Peaceful Warrior, Transforming Fear into Wisdom. Peaceful warriorship is the practice of meeting anxiety with courage and wisdom rather than avoidance or suppression, an approach inspired by traditions that teach us to face our fears with open hearts and clear minds. By learning to work with anxious energy skillfully, rather than being overwhelmed by it, we can transform our relationship with uncertainty into opportunities for growth, resilience, and spiritual awakening. It's crucial to understand that becoming a peaceful warrior doesn't mean eliminating all anxiety or becoming emotionally numb. On the contrary, skillful warriorship involves feeling your fears fully while responding from a place of centered awareness and loving wisdom rather than from reactive panic or avoidance. It's learning to use the very energy of anxiety as fuel for deeper presence and conscious action. True peaceful warriorship allows you to respond to uncertainty from a place of inner strength and faith, rather than from reactive resistance or overwhelming fear. When you're not fighting anxiety with force, you can transform it with greater creativity, insight, and effectiveness. A practical and transformative method for cultivating peaceful warriorship is practicing fear inquiry, the art of examining anxious thoughts for their truth and usefulness, then consciously choosing more balanced, realistic, and empowering perspectives. This isn't about positive thinking or denial, but about seeing situations with greater clarity and wisdom. For example, if you notice the thought, something terrible is going to happen, you might investigate, what evidence do I have for this? Fear? What are the actual odds of this occurring? What resources would I have if this challenge did arise? This inquiry uses the energy of worry to generate wisdom and preparedness rather than panic. Another powerful way to practice peaceful warriorship is to ask grounding questions when anxiety arises. Instead of accepting fearful thoughts as prophecy, you might ask, what do I actually know to be true right now? What is within my control in this situation? How can I take one small, helpful action? What would I advise someone else facing this same worry? Peaceful warriorship can also be strengthened through the practice of courage cultivation, not forcefully suppressing anxious thoughts, but having ready responses that are more accurate, empowering, and grounded in reality. By preparing calming, truthful statements about your strength and resilience, you can quickly redirect mental energy when fear arises. These courage statements should be believable and rooted in your actual experience, rather than unrealistic. Affirmations focus on thoughts like, I have survived challenges before. I can take this one moment at a time. I am stronger than I realize. Or, I can ask for help when I need it. In relationships, practicing peaceful warriorship means transforming anxiety about others' opinions into authentic self-expression and genuine connection. Instead of thinking, "They must think I'm weird," you might redirect to, "I choose to be authentic regardless of others' judgments," or "Most people are focused on their own concerns, not judging me." This approach reduces social anxiety while fostering more genuine relationships. Physical grounding practices can be powerful forms of peaceful warriorship, as they literally anchor scattered anxious energy into your body and the present moment. Whether through deep breathing, progressive muscle relaxation, walking barefoot on earth, or any form of embodied presence you enjoy, physical grounding helps transform the floating energy of worry into solid, stable awareness. The practice of gratitude serves as an excellent form of peaceful warriorship, redirecting attention from imagined disasters to present blessings, from what might go wrong to what's already going right. By consciously shifting focus to appreciation for your health, safety, opportunities, or even simple moments of beauty, you transform anxious mental energy into peaceful emotional states. Creative expression offers another pathway for peaceful warriorship, transforming anxious emotions and thoughts into art, music, writing, or any form of meaningful creation. This process not only releases fearful energy, but often produces something beautiful and healing from what initially felt purely destructive. Finally, by embracing the practice of peaceful warriorship, you not only find relief from anxiety's relentless assault, but also discover a profound sense of inner courage that comes from meeting uncertainty with wisdom and grace, leading to a life that's more present, creative, and genuinely peaceful. Mindful presence for anxiety. Liberation. Anchoring in the now. Mindfulness, or present moment awareness, is perhaps the most fundamental and liberating practice for freeing yourself from anxiety and worry patterns. This practice teaches us to rest in immediate reality, observing our mental activity without immediately believing, fearing, or trying to solve what we're experiencing. This approach is absolutely essential for breaking anxiety cycles, as it helps us remember that we are the peaceful observers of our thoughts, not their helpless prisoners. The transformative power of mindfulness lies in its ability to create sacred space between you and your anxious thoughts. Instead of being completely consumed by every fearful prediction or worry that arises, you develop the capacity to witness your mental activity with calm presence and loving awareness. This witnessing consciousness is what traditions call our essential nature, the innate peace and wisdom that exists within every being. Beginning a mindfulness practice can be as simple and accessible as dedicating just a few minutes each day to conscious observation of your current experience with complete, non-judgmental attention. By watching the flow of anxious thoughts, noticing how they arise, intensify, and dissolve, without trying to stop or fix them, you train your mind to find refuge in present moment awareness itself, significantly reducing anxiety's power to disturb your peace. This awareness practice is particularly powerful for anxiety because presence itself is always safe and calm. You can't have anxious presence or worried awareness, only awareness of anxious thoughts or worried feelings. So every time you return to pure presence, you're literally stepping out of the storm of anxiety into the calm harbor of the here and now. Throughout your day, make it a healing practice to bring mindful attention to the specific moments when anxiety typically arises. Whether it's while checking emails, noticing worry thoughts about responsibilities, planning for the future, observing catastrophic predictions, or facing uncertainty, watching control-seeking thoughts, this kind of present moment awareness helps you catch anxiety early and respond with wisdom rather than automatically believing fearful mental content. When you're fully present with your actual experience, rather than lost in anxious mental stories about your experience, you often discover that the present moment itself is safe or even pleasant. Your direct experience right now might be perfectly manageable. It's only the fearful thoughts about your experience that create suffering. True mindfulness also involves accepting your current emotional state exactly as it is without immediately trying to fix, escape, or improve it. This doesn't mean resigning yourself to chronic anxiety, but rather starting from a place of honest acknowledgement rather than resistance. When we accept our worried feelings without fighting against them, we paradoxically reduce their intensity and open space for natural calm and clarity to emerge. A practical example of mindfulness during anxious episodes is what could be called calm centering, bringing attention to your breath and body, accepting, allowing anxious feelings to be there without judgment, looking, observing what's actually happening versus what you're imagining, and maintaining, staying present with whatever arises. Instead of being immediately swept away by catastrophic thinking or paralyzing worry, try stepping back and observing, I notice my mind is creating fearful stories, my body feels tense, my breath feels shallow. This mindful observation helps you respond to anxiety from presence rather than react from fear. Incorporating mindfulness into your worry patterns can dramatically improve your relationship with your own mind. By being fully present with your internal dialogue, really listening to how your mind talks about the future rather than unconsciously, accepting every fearful prediction as fact, you become more aware of anxiety patterns and more skilled at choosing thoughts that serve your peace of mind. The practice of mindfulness doesn't need to be confined to formal meditation sessions. It can be beautifully integrated into daily activities like mindful breathing, noticing when anxiety affects your breath, mindful walking, staying present with each step instead of lost in worry, or mindful listening, focusing fully on sounds around you when anxiety spirals begin. Using guided meditation apps or recordings specifically designed for working with anxiety can be extremely helpful for beginners learning to observe their minds skillfully. Many programs offer specific practices for worry reduction, present moment, awareness and nervous system regulation that can be particularly useful for developing confidence in your ability to witness anxiety without being consumed by it. Keeping a presence journal can help you track your progress in working with anxious thoughts, identify patterns in your worry habits, and celebrate moments when you successfully used awareness to find calm. This record becomes a powerful reminder of your growing capacity to meet your own fears with greater presence and compassion. Finally, regular mindfulness practice not only reduces chronic anxiety, but also opens the door to experiencing your mind's natural state of calm and clarity. By observing your thoughts without automatically believing them, you begin to discover the spacious awareness that exists beyond all mental content, peaceful or anxious. Life becomes less about preventing all possible problems and more about resting in the perfect presence that can handle whatever arises with grace and wisdom. Remember, dear friend, that your mind's natural state is one of calm, presence, and inherent trust. Every anxious thought that passes through your consciousness is temporary, conditioned, and ultimately powerless to destroy your essential peace. With patience, practice, and compassion, you can reclaim your birthright of serenity and discover the joy of living from a mind that serves your highest peace.